Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We are your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 29th of March, 2020. It's our Sunday show. We're going all around the world with coronavirus. That's what we're going to do. I feel like that's going to be every
that's just
title.
There's got to be a better way to start out a show about death and destruction without.
I wasn't thinking coronavirus. I'm still in like our Sunday show is usually like a fun show because it's world news. We can talk about like crazy things like Brexit, which is done. Okay. And now what I was getting ready to say is that we're going to be doing coronavirus forever. Some of you 80s people will get that joke. But I mean, seriously, like,
good thing you got somebody else on this show to be like, no, we're not Looney Tunes. All around the world with corona. That's not a song.
I'm serious.
Somebody has to come in and be like, just kidding, you guys.
But
this isn't a laughing matter.
I wasn't thinking about coronavirus.
Why in the world are they on? Why are they here if you're not thinking? They're here to grasp the gleanings of our thinking. If you started out by saying all around the world with coronavirus and you're like, I wasn't thinking, y'all just pack it up, go watch somebody else. Good thing I've been doing some thinking. A lot of thinking. So I can come to you.
I come in and I get into autopilot for our show. We have been doing this show for 3 years.
On Sundays
which is 100.
You're right.
We normally
Sunday
shows.
All kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have props. Normally our Sunday show is filled with props.
Mic check. Thank you, Maya.
You know,
what's wrong with the mic?
And hijabs, and I understand where you're coming from. I'm gonna give you one pass.
I have the right mic on. Okay. If you're having bad audio, I apologize.
So welcome to our UK Euro show. This is now turned into the All Around the World show, where we will focus primarily on everywhere but the United States. Because the rest of the week we kind of focus on ourselves. No, I'm just kidding. No, we care about everyone all around the world. That's the whole point of this show. I have a lot to bring to you. I'm gonna the WHO in the pocket of the Chinese, kind of a disturbing video out and some articles. We have to decouple the world from China. This is a hot war now with China. This is in a cold war, but it's very interesting because it's a right now it's not bullets and guns because China didn't want to fight that way. They wanted to fight by stealthily taking over the entire world through manufacturing, undercutting local manufacturing, undercutting local governments, and in an interesting way, trying to wage an online war, which isn't really successful because if you read the Chinese reviews on Amazon for fake products, you'll eventually find out that solar powered battery pack, while the reviews are good, took camping with family. We were good. We had good time.
You're holding a grudge against that specific issue.
Yeah,
that solar powered battery pack light that you bought.
Yeah. Well, you can't trust Amazon reviews anymore.
Exactly.
Because I've tried to buy hundreds of different things, and you can just tell. You have to read through the reviews. Like you have to read.
And also you need to read that. Make sure that it's the specific product, like same brand, same model. Because they'll go and grab this is a microphone. I'm going to go grab the reviews from this microphone and put it on here.
That is exactly. They're ruthless. All right. So let's just go over the top updates, and then I'm going to start with something interesting. Just kind of like cruise ships abandoned, not abandoned, but like some people are dying on cruise ships. People are getting infected on cruise ships. Petri dishes, and so we're gonna kind of go there. Then we're gonna cover Spain, what's going on in the UK, what's going on in Italy. We are gonna go to some of the other EU Euro nations and see what's happening there. So, all right. Let's see. We're skipping New York. You guys don't care. I'm just kidding. All right. So in Italy, it has reported 5,217 new cases of COVID-19 and 756 deaths. That is down from the major 900 and some odd deaths that we had on Friday, raising the total to about 97 1,689 cases and 10,779 dead. It marks the second straight day of declines. So yesterday there was a decline, but remember we saw two straight days of declines in Italy and then another uptick. To say a decline is very, it's 10 of one, 20 of another, because once they reach 959, then every day is down from that. But they're still at 800. So when they were at like 10, down from that, you know what I'm saying? So like,
I'm with you.
declines, what is decline? Another news, Al Jazeera reported Sunday that Dutch officials had officially released tens of thousands of masks imported from China and distributed to hospitals battling the COVID-19 outbreak. I'm going to show you that not only did China send tests to Spain where only 30% worked, masks are not working. Things coming out of China, masks and tests are not working.
Like we talked about with the solar eclipse, they sent the glasses out and people were like looking into the sun with them and getting damage.
There's a video circulating with a Chinese manufacturer laughing about a thermometer. The forehead thermometer is not working.
Oh my gosh.
Additionally, the Indian government, Modi has apologized for the extreme lockdown, knowing that it would hurt the poor. Poor people trying to travel back and forth to work for the sudden manner it imposed on the lockdown, giving more than 1 billion people just hours to prepare. Still more than 3.38 billion people worldwide have still been asked in order to follow confinement measures in the fight against COVID-19. That's more than 4 in 10 people worldwide. As the Middle East continues to struggle with the outbreak, Syria's health ministry reported on Sunday its first death from COVID-19. Jordan reported its first death Sunday. Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, expanded its lockdown by halting entry and exit into the Jeddah government, expanding lockdown rules as it reports 4 new deaths from coronavirus outbreak that continues to spread in the region despite extensive containment measures implemented by the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, and other countries. Elsewhere in New Delhi, Indian Prime Minister Modi asked the nation's poor for forgiveness as the economic and human toll from his 21-day nationwide lockdown order deepens and criticism mounts over the lack of adequate planning. It's pretty rough because dozens of people are forced to walk dozens of miles back home after being stranded when public transit shuttered. Many were confronted by police harassment when they were just trying to get home. And he apologized for that. Let's see. Spain today reported yet another record rise. So now we see Italy went down, but now they're like neck and neck with Spain with another 838 fatalities, bringing that country to about 6,500 deaths.
Though it's like what you just said earlier, to explain it better, if you start losing $50 a day, then $100 a day, then $200 a day, $500 a day, $600 a day, if you lost $800 yesterday and today you only lost $600, you're still losing it. So that's when it says the numbers are going down, it's unfortunate that these are actually still lives lost.
Right. And I am going to just give you the update from the United States here while we're at it. And I'm actually doing, right now I'm just kind of going over the numbers. We're going to go into these numbers a little bit deeper. We're going to go into Spain. We're going to go into Italy. We aren't going in there. We're going to virtually go there.
We're going.
We always wanted to go to Italy. Even as a large swath of the country still have trouble accessing tests, we have the largest number of confirmed cases in the United States, but that is because we're testing a lot of people. And remember, United States, 50 states,
we're
337
huge.
million people.
We're so huge.
And there is a
it's not even just our population because
let me finish real quick. There's a picture an image that I wish I could bring up, but imagine the globe, a flat map. Okay, so you'll see actually the places where the virus actually hits is a regional place around, above the equator.
Interesting.
Okay, and so and you see it kind of go up because the world's not actually flat, so it kind of curves. So you kind of see it go up, and it hits there. That's why the United States is kind of on the same plane there as Wuhan, China. So it is a geographical disease. So some people are saying, why is South America not being slammed? Geographically, yes, the southern climate is not.
It was fascinating to us when Australia was hit.
Perfect host for, right. But it wasn't really hit. It was those Chinese people were bringing it down. But it doesn't have a chance to spread because it hates sunlight. So, like in Australia, put all your stuff made outside. You know, go get your groceries, put it outside. You go shake somebody's hand, stick it outside. Put it in the sun. There you go. Right?
That was a terrible Australian accent.
I'm sorry. Thank you. So I'm just what I wanted to get out there before. So some people are saying, I heard Candace Owens again today. She's a COVID denier. She's like, why isn't Bangladesh being hit, and why aren't these different countries being hit? A lot of it has to do with geographics and moisture, or the sun, and versus the cold, dry air. There's a lot to how this virus transmits.
Does she ever walk anything back? Apologize?
No, she can't do it. No, she can't. She's just too...
So my point was, America, so you guys have denser populations in a lot of your countries, okay?
Right.
And so us with our 300 million population, right, compared to, I think it's like, what, 16...
well, India has over 1 billion people. China has over 1 billion people.
India and China aside. I mean, like, Italy and the UK.
They're all about 60 million people.
Right.
They're very densely
populated. But what we have in the United States is we do have this big chunk in the middle where there's a lot of space. People are more spread out besides California and New York. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we're seeing them.
You're seeing the outbreaks in the cities. In the cities, in industrialized cities.
Right.
With Milan and in Italy. Italy, you know, everybody lives on top of each other. You sneeze, it hits the balcony below you. All right, so the total confirmed cases globally nearing 682,000. In the U.S., 124,000, about 125 by Sunday. Johns Hopkins, another 2,191 deaths have been recorded. 200 of those occurred since late Saturday. And that is with doctors. One doctor said he treated 500 patients with the hydrochloroquine, and he didn't lose one. So... don't look at the death numbers. Just because people are saving lives and we have the tip of the spear medical facilities, those numbers would be astronomical and off the charts if we had the medical system of Spain, which is like a third world medical system. We have 50 states. And each one of those states have top-notch medical facilities.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Top-notch.
Yeah.
Okay? And if one state isn't hard hit, they can send medical people to a state that is hard hit. We have the... honestly, if you're going to get coronavirus in the United States, so our numbers are extremely low as far as deaths to the people testing positive, because our medical team has the ability to treat and to help save people's lives. So I want to give people hope. But that doesn't mean that if these measures weren't put in place, that's what I want to tell, like a Candace Owens or something. What the president did was shut down air travel in China, and then shut down air travel from Europe. And then with telling people, he told people not to go on cruises, and then he told people in March, try not to travel anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then we had states one by one issuing all these sort of like self-quarantining things, and then schools shutting down. And so when you see all this happening across, the whole United States of America, and you say, well, why aren't there more deaths? Well, I've seen some people say that. It's just like the flu. Why aren't there more deaths? Well, we've shut down the entire economy. Just not see more deaths.
Exactly.
If you had let it just completely go. And so what they were doing is they were watching what was happening in Italy, realizing that especially in the cities that it could spread. And Candace Owens saying, well, she said today, why isn't Bangladesh being hit? Well, I don't know. All I know is that in the cities in our zone, it spreads rapidly and fast.
So like if you're listening to the Holy Spirit and you're driving down the road and God says, turn here, or stop here, or take a little bit longer here, or whatever, and you avoid a car accident where someone might have been killed, or you might have been injured, or something just completely life-altering and life-changing would have happened if you didn't do that, you will never know. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so that's what we're experiencing here in the United States, where everybody's like, they were expecting us to take the measures and still see the car wreck.
Right.
And the whole point of taking measures was so that we didn't see the car wreck, and yet you still, not you, but they still want to see the car wreck.
And see, exactly, because they still want to see the car wreck. You had in March, we had Mayor Bill.
But their proof of the car wreck is it happening in Italy and Spain and the UK, and they're not putting that together.
And in Wuhan.
Exactly.
So I'm going to show you what happened in Wuhan, and then that's what you're saying is that, if you're driving a Tesla and it keeps exploding, and 9 out of 10 are exploding, you're like, but mine won't. Okay. So all political leaders have faced criticism. If you guys have been watching, I don't need to go over the Mayor Bill de Blasio telling people not to worry, get on the subway. In Spain, Jose Maria Anzar, the former prime minister, departed on his holiday villa in Marbella, a celebrity resort on the Mediterranean, leaving Madrid on the day the schools were shuttered. Let's see, Louisiana is asking for help, but he said the federal government should have told him not to do Mardi Gras. And this is what I'm going to talk about here. This video is being shared all over the place. Taiwanese journalists interviewing a senior WHO official who steadfastly refused to say anything about China's response or the WHO's dismissive treatment of Taiwan. It's pretty critical there. So those are the updates I like to get from
Zero Hedge.
And let's go here. More evidence in China. China's lying. The number of urns more than double reported coronavirus deaths. So there's stacks of urns. They were giving out people's urns from the crematoriums. China has been caught lying once again about the coronavirus figures, with the latest evidence coming from the ground. In Wuhan, where according to official CCP data, only 50,000 people were infected and only about 2,500 died. Yet the Chinese investigative outlet Caxin revealed that when mortuaries opened back up this week, photos revealed a far greater number of urns than reported deaths. In one, a truckload with 2,500 urns can be seen arriving at the Hankou mortuary. According to the report, the driver said he had delivered the same amount the previous day. In another photo, 7 500 urn stacks can be seen inside the mortuary, adding up to 3,500 deaths. And
one mortuary?
Yeah. This adds up to more than double the amount of reported deaths for the region. For each grieving family members waited in line as long as 5 hours. Urns are reportedly being distributed at the rate of 500 a day at a mortuary until Tomb Sweeping Day holiday, which falls on April 4th this year. They do a thing, Tomb Sweeping Day. Wuhan has 7 other mortuaries. If they are all sticking to the same schedule, this adds up to more than 40,000 urns being distributed in the city over the next 10 days. When reporters at Bloomberg made calls to the funeral homes to check on the number of urns waiting to be collected, the mortuary said that they either did not have the data or were not authorized to disclose it. Given the constant provable lies, does anyone believe that China actually contained COVID-19? And of course, as former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer pointed out implicitly, don't expect the mainstream media to question anything. And because everybody's in Chinese in the China pocket.
So Britt Baza says Leah Marbella is pronounced Marbella.
Okay.
Stuart the Brit says Britt Baza said that. Stuart the Brit says, is it possible they may be releasing it around the world still? Why do we assume it is the same outbreak from China, or am I just a tin hat person?
Those are good. Yeah, all good theories. And at this point, guys, there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. Everybody gets a place at the table. Tongji Hospital in Wuhan, China is still overwhelmed and refuses to admit a patient suffering from diabetes. Video shot on March 28th by ambulance personnel who sent the patient to the hospital. We need an explanation. Do you not accept patients if this person has a problem? No one is irresponsible. No one is responsible. Do you not expect... and they're still all covered head to toe, by the way, in gear. If not, I'll tow him away. What's wrong with him? Diabetes. See the patient's foot? Do you accept him or not? They said no doctors. We're here for emergency surgery. How do we know about the situation? I will tell you. I don't have orthopedic surgeons. She said there's no doctors. Not for a long time, isn't it? So we need a clear explanation. Do you really? So we need a doctor. I tell you now, we don't have orthopedic surgeons. then is there a leader here who can call the shots? I'm going to emergency surgery, not necessarily orthopedics. We don't have orthopedic surgeons here, so you don't accept him. Is that what you mean? There's no doctor who will treat him? The whole Tanji hospital, without an orthopedic surgeon, the doctor went to help. They went to the Optics Valley. Not even one doctor, no? Not for now. Okay, fine, that's enough. So, these hospitals are overwhelmed.
Meaning what they are saying is they can't even treat regular patients. And that is what I was saying about here in the United States when you've got somebody like Candace Owens saying it's just like the flu. Well, okay, so let's just say for 1 second it is just like the flu. Having an added illness that is going to produce a lot of sick people overrunning our hospital.
They said the numbers that other people say will be like, oh, there was 250,000 hospitalizations for flu. Why didn't they overrun the hospitals? And my answer to you is, I don't know.
Well, but the answer would be maybe because our hospitals are prepared for that, and they're not prepared for this, and that's why we're taking these measures until they can get up to speed. Calm down.
That's very good. Somewhere in CCP-ruled China, people are setting off firecrackers to congratulate the U.S. for confirming 100,000 plus COVID-19 cases. I love China. Fight the USA. I love my country. I am proud, shouts a woman.
What? Fight against USA. I love my country. I am proud.
So, do I think that I'm trying to unleash this on the world? Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Oh, that's a good one.
I will. I'm going to go. Okay. We're going through China here.
Okay.
Chinese state-run media reported that China donated 150,000 coronavirus test kits to Czech Republic, but the Czech Republic said they paid for the kits, which had an error rate of 80%, which goes along to saying, and they could give you false positive or false negative. So at that point, like, even with a 10%, error rate or a 5% error rate, that's not acceptable.
Right.
Okay. The U.S. we run 2 tests and they are precise, right?
State media recently reported on China donating rapid test kits to the Czech Republic, but it turns out the Czech Republic actually paid for the kits and they didn't even work. Chinese state-run media reported on March 18th that China donated 150,000 portable rapid COVID-19 test kits to the Czech Republic. But according to a report by expats, the Czech Foreign Ministry paid more than $500,000 for the kits. The Czech Republic's regional hygienist said the test kits had an error rate of 80%. They only discovered the problem after sending samples to their lab for a second option. The results of the rapid testing kit showed both false positive and false negative results. It will now only do its own lab testing, which is limited to around 900 a day.
So America was, and I was upset at that they're testing, right?
Yeah.
But China is going around telling people that they're saviors of the world.
I know.
And they're giving people, whole countries, things that don't work. They just don't work. Then we have this video around 10 days ago, and basically every other day or two, people were jumping out of buildings. This is kind of disturbing, so don't have your kids in the room. Since the outbreak of the CCP virus, videos circulating online show residents inside of Wuhan. This is what happened during the outbreak. They had no food. They were committing suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Even if the virus doesn't kill you, you might still die from lack of food. This is a huge problem for sure. As the lockdown continues in Wuhan City, videos circulating online show the desperation of residents running out of food, money, or even being denied treatment. A Wuhan resident told us on March 20th that the difficulties in the epicenter are causing people in China to commit suicide.
People are tired, hopeless. I don't know how many have jumped from buildings. Around 10 days ago, basically every other day or two, there were people jumping off buildings or committing suicide, using all kinds of methods.
On February 25th, a netizen from China revealed that a patient with CCP virus returned home from hospital in Wuhan and found that the family had all died. He then hanged himself on the roof. A video on Twitter posted on February 16th shows a woman trying to jump off from the place that looks like a bridge. The woman in the video said, "Even if you help me, I won't survive." And the man saying, "Don't worry, if you're sick, look for a doctor." Videos like these have been coming out of China for months.
I have seen many people who jumped. Why? People can't survive. That's why they jump.
Some are even refused medical treatment. Another video posted on February 21st shows someone hanging from a building. The person who took the video said in Wuhan dialect, "Another death." This tweet is part of a threat showing people attempting to commit suicide in what netizens say is Wuhan City.
This is disturbing. I said, if you have children, leave the room.
I was not even listening. Okay, thank God.
One tweet reads, "Another suicide after infection." Wuhan netizens said that now if one person in the family is infected, it means that the whole family may be infected. No one cares. They can only wait for death in isolation and suffering. The spirit collapses first. Since Wuhan closed its city, how many people have committed suicide? So,
one thing you have to look at in the video here, sorry, I didn't mean to go back to the hanging person, is how many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. This looks to be like at least a 22 or 23 floor high rise. What happened is they were locking people in for weeks and months at a time into these giant high rises. These aren't normal apartment buildings. Maybe in downtown Cincinnati we have some that are that high, or maybe 17 floors.
The ones that you actually live in, there's only a few.
Only like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
In most apartment buildings around where I live, the highest is 4, but they're 3 stories high. You can get out, you can walk around. There's green space around. What you see, this is why it took off so virulently, so powerfully. When you have people living on top of each other, this is communism.
Yeah. And
I was talking to a friend of mine as I was talking about how can you help people to get back to their farms. China is, I don't know how many square miles it is. I don't know how many acres it has, but I do know that they stole everybody's farms. And then what communism did in Russia and what it does everywhere is it takes the land from people. And then you'll see these, thousands of acre farms with the canola oil, and they run them in big machines, and they so-called feed the people. And you could give each one of these people 5 acres in China and just let them go build their own houses and live this nice little idealistic farmer life. But the problem is they don't let you own the land. And so this is the major problem. 1.8 billion people could live in China on acreage and be healthy and happy. But the CPP wouldn't have power and control, and it would revert to a more rural life. It wouldn't be the technology that we're talking about, but you wouldn't see the plastics overrunning the rivers. You wouldn't see the pollution, because when you're living on a small homestead or a farm, you make do with what you have.
Right.
Okay. And in making do with what you have, you're not this endless consumer person, and you're not harming the environment as much.
Exactly.
And so China, with the factories and everything, is killing the planet. And this is where we lean, the left could say, hey, I agree with you. The only difference is they want to make it happen. And I've been wanting to rely on God and human and convincing people, because that's what Christians do. Okay, real Christians, not the bad ones throughout history. Real Christians will convince you of the right thing to do and try to, reason with your heart and your mind rather than force you to do things. They're sent to the ICU. If children don't submit the fee in time, the elderly are secretly killed.
In his 80s, he was sent to the intensive care unit where Leo was an intern. To protect Dr. Leo's identity, we've hidden his name and altered his voice.
He had respiratory failure and slight heart failure. He wasn't an urgent patient sent by an ambulance. He still could have recovered.
ICU treatment is costly. After 4 or 5 days, the man had over $7,000 to pay. The problem was he couldn't afford it.
The hospital wouldn't shoulder the cost, but doctors, nurses, and all staff in the intensive care unit have to. The hospitals wouldn't spend a penny. The system just works like that. You may not be familiar with it. Usually the Bureau of Civil Affairs should pay for it, but they refused because this old man has children. The children don't want him to be treated. They said, we're working in other regions. We won't be back, and the hospital can decide what to do with him.
Leo said the old man was sent to the hospital from a nursing home that didn't want the man to die under their care. Many people in China don't have medical insurance.
The nursing home doesn't want to shoulder the responsibility, so of course they will send him to the ICU. The nursing home also wouldn't pay his costs. Medical care in China isn't free. You pay for yourself.
Leo said he remembers it was a morning in early January. He saw the deputy chief of ICU injecting drugs into the old man's body. He thought the deputy chief was trying to save the man from dying, but he didn't see any emergency care equipment. He questioned other staff about what the deputy chief was doing.
At the time, all the doctors and nurses in the ICU were pretending to be busy with their own work. They knew what was happening, they just didn't say anything.
Other patients in the ICU were in comas. Leo then asked a stretcher bearer why the deputy chief was doing emergency care by himself.
The stretcher bearer told me not to care about it and just mind my own business.
Leo said a while after the injection, the man started trembling.
He asked me to remove the tracheal intubation so I would be the one that ended the man's life. I was forced to do this. I've been very depressed about it. Widowed seniors, those without children, or whose children work in other regions, after their situation worsens and they're sent to the ICU, if the children don't submit the fee in time, the elderly are secretly killed.
Patient was...
So do you think that China counted those deaths as COVID-19 deaths?
No way.
You can feel the air.
I can't, because it's so depressing. The fact that they have no value for life whatsoever.
China has free healthcare. China does not have free
healthcare. If you
healthcare.
have communism, full-blown communism, it's supposed to be that they actually take care of your healthcare. Even if it's like third world country healthcare, you're supposed to get something. You don't even get end of life care. Like you don't get. You get that in the United States, and we're not even a socialist country. We kind of are.
Here we have behind you. This is a picture. If you can see them all in gloves and masks. This is a bank opening in Wuhan. So you tell me the disease is gone.
Interestingly, I don't know if you guys have any stories like this you want to put in the chat. Not that I'll be able to read them all, but for you guys to read amongst yourselves. Yesterday, Kansas went to Lowe's. Mm-hmm. And he said that they had put up plexiglass between the cashier and the customer with just like a little opening for you to slide your card and I guess put some of your items, the smaller ones, on the thing, and then the rest you kind of like hold up to be scanned through the plexiglass.
In Wuhan, photos
here's again
released from a Chinese media platform shows the death toll of CCP virus may be far greater than the official number. A fight
CCP
involving thousands erupted on a Chinese bridge.
We told you that, and that was
in Wuhan photo. A fight involving
that was the same thing. So death tolls are higher. There was more urns and things like that, and I think I want to go to now to Taiwan. Let's see. So I think I read you guys. This is the official report, and that I was showing you guys about the death tolls, and then that was a good one. We got a pedophile arrested. Yay. Okay. Oh, before I go to Taiwan, again, talking about Chinese goods. The Netherlands recalls 600,000 face masks from China due to a low quality. The top of the line N95 masks did not fit well and filters did not function properly. Dutch government says it comes after Spain asked for COVID-19 rapid test kits imported from China to be replaced because they were unreliable. The Dutch officials have recalled over 500,000 face masks manufactured in China because they didn't meet quality standards. The news shocked frontline medical staff in the Netherlands who rely on high-quality products to protect them from contracting the virus. Half of the shipment of 1.3 million supposedly top-of-line face masks, known as the N95, in the United States and Hong Kong had already been distributed to doctors and nurses treating the most critical patients. They're known as FFP2 in Europe and KN95 in mainland China. They play a critical role in healthcare. I can't believe that this would happen. Let me see here. So this was from March 25th. Italy and Spain had recorded their deadliest days. And in March 27th, 969, we told you that. Over 10,000 total. This one is an older video. And 800, it's up to 800 today. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of some of the pictures.
It's not that old.
Out.
It's from the 27th. Today's the 29th.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
It's just 2 days. Oh, it's older. It's 2 days old.
According to the Dutch Ministry of Health, Welfare and Sport, the mask did not fit well and the filters did not function properly. Due to shortages, we found ourselves in a situation where the only protective equipment available does not meet the highest standards. This is an issue for all countries. Last Saturday, the first shipment from a Chinese manufacturer just delivered in part... these masks are the KN95 quality certificate. The ministry was notified by inspectors that the quality of this shipment did not meet quality criteria. Part of the shipment was already delivered. A second test also showed that the mask did not meet quality standards. The problem with the Chinese masks was first discovered by hospitals that received them, and the health workers saying that they didn't fit. And the FFP face masks are supposed to have a filter efficiency of 92%. According to European standards, the Dutch broadcaster cited a source saying the Chinese face masks were not FFP2 quality, nor of the lesser safety quality of the FFP1. Some of the FF.8 were at best, meaning they had less than half the filter efficiency acquired for the high level. When they were delivered to our hospital, I immediately rejected those masks. And so I just wanted to kind of put that out there and let you know.
So Kelly said that was going on at their gas stations with the plexiglass. Jim West says small stores near me, he's in the UK, the same. They just are wearing gloves to handle cash. Mm-hmm. I like what Endora says. I'm very optimistic that after this is over, each country will strive to produce their own medicine and masks. And not just their own medicine and masks, but so many other things. I think what this has done is, if China did do this, they weren't thinking clearly, because they want everybody to be reliant on them, and they do want this global world economy, but they've created all of these populist, nationalist ideals in nations that weren't thinking along those lines.
Yeah, and Marine Le Pen said, this is probably the death of the European Union. Now, I know you guys don't follow Candace Owens. I know this is not your bridge to fall on. I don't know how she keeps ending up on my feed, but she's the one who always saying it's just the flu, it's no big deal, we're killing the economy, people just need to get back to work, and just hospitals will be fine. She's literally being a prophet saying everything will be fine if you just listen to me.
Yeah.
Everything will be fine.
It's very irresponsible of her, actually. She's
still
not taking any of the advice of actual medical or scientific professionals.
Now, what she's trying to do is be the other side of the voice for the Bill Gates who say shut everything down for 6 to 10 weeks. I don't trust Bill Gates as far as I could throw him.
Right.
Hillary Clinton is saying shut everything down. So why are the elites saying shut everything down? They want to kill Donald Trump. They want to kill the economy. Mm-hmm. But I'm here to tell you as a Christian that they can't help themselves, because God is using them. They are like Pharaoh, being told what to say and told what to do. God has taken over. God is going to save lives. Okay? And he is saying at this point, and this is what makes it so confusing for everyone.
Right.
Because if the media is saying it, then it must be wrong. Okay?
But
I'm going to tell you where the media is wrong. They're wrong in blaming Donald Trump.
Right.
And saying that it's his fault. You have Nancy Pelosi, who just came out yesterday and said, well, we don't trust how Donald Trump is handling this. We're going to start investigations. These people hate you so much. They're not on the ground helping doctors. They're not helping get masks. They're not helping get PPPs. They hate you. They're filled with demonic powers. For her to say, let's investigate Donald Trump into this, they're literally satanically motivated, and that's okay, because that is them showing their true colors, because Satan wants people dead.
He's literally doing what all the professionals are telling him to do.
Exactly. So what we need here, we showed you guys the lady in Michigan, the nurse in Michigan, who does not have enough mask, enough PPP, enough. The reason she doesn't is because it used to come out at an inspected quality from China. We don't even have the time to inspect it. They shut down their manufacturing. They're not up and bustling to make the masks and the stuff. And the masks that they are making, obviously, are low quality, and you don't want them anyways. They're shoving out. They've literally decided, war on the world. We hate you, world. We're just creating everything low quality from now on, right? And so this is good news and it's bad news. And so with the kind of social distancings and the quarantinings that we're doing, you see people like the My Pillow guy he's making masks in his factory. Aww. Okay, it's going to take. Like, this just happened a couple months ago. It could take a year or more before...
Fascinatingly enough, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but a lot of people kind of think this thing started in March, right? I was talking to a friend of ours yesterday, and she's like, at the beginning of March when we first started hearing about coronavirus. And then I remember hearing about people, we were talking to our client who we thought had it, and she doesn't, and she was saying, you know, like when it first started being talked about, like in the middle of February, and I'm going, like, I'm sitting over here going, we did videos on this in the middle of January, and I find myself getting confused a little bit about everyone's perception as far as when all of this started, because we were telling you guys this thing was coming in the middle of January.
We were making videos telling you guys to stock up in January.
And so for me, it's like, no, they've had like months to plan this. So the government has had months to plan this.
Right.
The public has not. And that's what I wanted to clarify.
And so what I'm talking about is it's going to take a year or more to bring back all of those things. It could be 2 or 3 years before, you know, all the medicines are made here, the masks are made here. Right. So the reason for the quarantinings and the things like that is the hospitals could take care of you. The hydrochloroquine looks really promising. There's a lot of things coming online, but what I mean by it's just... people, even hospitals, have only had like a month to work on it. And the fact that they already have some cures, that they already have, you know, My Pillow guy on it. Like, this is wartime, and this is quick. Like, every 24-hour news cycle is like literally like 6 months.
But it feels like an eternity for people who have no idea what it's like to slow down and just live their life at home.
Exactly. So you're going to look back at this
2 weeks to them feels like I've been in my house for 6 months.
I know. And it does. It really does. And so
I gotta get out of here.
10 years, we're going to look back. 20 years, we're going to look back at that time like, oh, there was this thing. And, you know, if you got all your manufacturing back in less than 5 years, that would be a huge thing. But I think it even happened like faster than that.
It's going to happen like a year, man.
Because Americans are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. So this is where...
And not just Americans. This is happening all over the world.
Yeah,
but not as much as it is here. But I want you guys, because it's our Sunday show, and a lot of you are watching us from across the pond. Well, we're going to go to the UK.
They're making ventilators. Their Dyson vacuum cleaners are making ventilators. They're making 15,000 ventilators.
I think that this is going to boost the public's confidence in, you know what, Brexit was the right thing. Those who didn't vote leave, they're going to be like... they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we did this.
And God, you know, broke it up. Okay, so here we're going to show you how... right now, if you guys don't know this, Taiwan is separate from China, but China doesn't want to let them go. And those who side with China never say Taiwan, and they always say it's part of China. Okay, so this is a video that is circulating with a woman interviewing a WHO who will not recognize Taiwan. It's creepy, and the WHO is the World Health Organization.
Some places have seemed to have things more under control. One of them is Taiwan. Late this week, Taiwan had recorded 252 cases and only 2 deaths, a much lower percentage than its larger East Asian neighbor.
I want you guys to see what they've done, though. They've sanitized everything. They never trust the ZBP. They started sanitizing everything from the get-go, from January. They knew from the very beginning that China was lying.
They know more than anybody what China does.
Right. So when you see these, when you see some of these videos,
this week, Taiwan had recorded 252 cases and only 2 deaths,
this is what they've been doing, and
a
everybody
much lower
wears masks.
percentage than its larger East Asian neighbors. Taipei says it alerted the WHO at the end of December about the risk of human-to-human
Taipei alerted the WHO in December of human-to-human transmission of this, and they didn't listen to them.
Transmission of COVID-19, but concerns were not passed on. Despite being shut out by China and the WHO, Taiwan's efforts in combating the outbreak were recognized by the European Union in a recent video conference.
Will the WHO consider Taiwan's membership?
Shoulder just a little bit. That's good.
Hello?
Sorry, I can't hear you. I couldn't hear your question.
Okay, yeah. Let me repeat the question.
No, that's okay. Let's move to another one then.
Right, because I'm actually curious on talking about Taiwan as well, on Taiwan's case.
We decided to give Dr. Alward another call to follow up.
And I just want to see if you can comment a bit on how Taiwan has done so far in terms of containing the virus.
Well, we've already talked about China, and when you look across all the different areas of China, they've actually all done quite a good job. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for inviting us to participate, and good luck as you go forward with the battle in Hong Kong.
So first he pretends, that was a pretend that he didn't hear her, by the way, because his face, you can watch it. It hurts him. He twinges, and then he just pretends to be quiet, and then he says, "Oh, let's just move on." I watch this one more time.
Nobody ever says, "Let's move on to a different question" if we didn't hear it.
Right.
That's creepy.
Sorry, I can't hear you. I couldn't hear your question.
Okay, yeah. Let me repeat the question.
No, that's okay. Let's move to another one then.
Right, because I'm actually curious on talking about Taiwan as well, on Taiwan's case.
He looks down to hang up.
Yeah.
We decided to give Dr. Alward another call to follow up.
And I just want to see if you can comment a bit on how Taiwan has done so far in terms of containing the virus.
Well, we've already talked about China, and when you look across all the different areas of China, they've actually all done quite a good job.
Taiwan,
so with that,
I'd
like to thank you very much for inviting us to participate, and good luck as you go forward with the battle in Hong Kong.
Storm Bear says he's a mouthpiece for the WHO. He's on the Chinese payroll.
Okay, so here's a good. Now that we're all kind of hung up to the WHO, I'm going to read this article here from the Spectre. Abolish the World Health Organization. The WHO has become another pointless organization pandering to the world's worst actors. Way back on January 10th, the official Twitter account of the World Health Organization declared that the WHO does not recommend any specific health measures for travelers to and from Wuhan, China. The tweet went on to say that it is generally considered that entry screenings offer little benefit while requiring considerable resources. The follow-up tweet described how the WHO advised against the application of any travel or trade restrictions on China based on the information currently available. What we've learned since is that China was by then already engaged in a massive cover-up of the release and spread of the virus. It imprisoned doctors, one of whom would later die from COVID-19, who attempted to warn the world on January, and that's what I would say to Candace Owens. This doctor died trying to tell you that this was a pandemic and that it was crazy, and you want to say no big deal, it's no worse than flu, then he should not have told the whole world about it. Then China shouldn't have told the whole world about it, and the whole world should just continue on the way it is. China's not to blame. You can't have it both ways. Either China should, if it was just the flu, why would the China need to tell the whole world about it? Why would people be walking down the street falling over dead? Why would Chinese hospitals be overrun with a bunch of patients? Why would there be so many crematoriums burning more bodies, if it was just the flu? Okay? So you can't, she's literally a Chinese CPP mouthpiece at this point. Yeah. If it's just the flu, then they had no reason to tell the world about it.
Right.
And she's siding with the WHO, saying it was no big deal.
The WHO is so corrupt. They are, so in the chat, everyone's talking about Agenda 21. They are an Agenda 21 mouthpiece. They are an arm of it. Their entire, and somebody answered the question pretty well. Endora says it's an agenda to restrict movement, take over farmland, and force people into megacities, and to reduce the population.
Exactly.
All right. So now earlier, Leah had said something really pertinent. This is the reason why it's all so confusing, is because there are things at play. You have bad guys over here, and then you kind of have bad guys over here, and they're all kind of doing maybe their own thing. And so it's difficult to place what is really the bad thing and what really is good coming out of it, because there are different bad players at play here they're trying to accomplish. It's a war. This is an attack, and it is a war that is being played right before us, underneath of all of the information, and all we can do is do the research. All you can do is do the research and just try to get to the middle of this. Just last night in my group chat with Maya and Eric and Terry, they were kind of saying the same thing. Like, this is what it's so there's so much going on here that's why it's hard to get to the bottom of it.
The only thing that you can do is keep adding information
and seek God.
Yeah, exactly. So on January 14th, the same Twitter account blasted out that preliminary investigations conducted by the Chinese authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission. That was the WHO Twitter handle, which said, hey guys, human-to-human, it's not happening.
Yeah. 2
wrong tweets shouldn't call into question the credibility of the World Health Organization, but the direction in which its Director General, Tedros, I don't even know how to say his last name.
Adhanom
has steered the WHO, and his unwillingness to diverge from Beijing's public pronouncements should trouble the world. If the WHO is going to become another public relations body whose mission is to cover for the world's worst actors, it needs to be abolished and replaced. The world doesn't need another flaccid council whose sole intention is pleasing its financial backers.
Right.
We already have a United Nations for that. Since the coronavirus has become a global pandemic, halting the world's economy in its track, Tedros has taken it upon himself to repeat Chinese state talking points about shifting blame from their own role in the spread of the virus. When fighting an outbreak such as COVID-19, we must be guided by solidarity, not stigma. The greatest enemy we face is not the virus itself. It's the stigma that turns us against each other. We must stop stigma and hate. No, the virus is really just the enemy. This has been a familiar refrain from the Chinese state, whose government, which runs forced labor and concentration camps. China repeatedly eludes scrutiny by not only the head of the WHO, but by sectors of American media as well. Since his appointment as head of the WHO in 2017, the full backing of China and its vast financial resources, Tedros has come under fire for his role covering up multiple cholera epidemics in Ethiopia. Shortly after his appointment to the WHO, the WHO, he was bestowed the honor of Goodwill Ambassador. He bestowed the honor of Goodwill Ambassador to Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe. It was only after a deluge of outrage from human rights groups that the WHO members of Adhanom withdrew the honor. Now, from what I understand, Adhanom is actually an Ethiopian Maoist, so he is a communist.
Wow.
All right. You should never have a communist in charge of the WHO. According to the Washington Post report at the time, Tedros' decision was based partly on rewarding China for backing his appointment. Why did China back his appointment? Because he's a Maoist. Some speculate that Tedros' decision to appoint Mugabe was a payoff to China, which worked tirelessly behind the scenes to help Tedros defeat the United Kingdom candidate for the job, David Nabarro. Tedros' victory was also a victory for Beijing, whose leader Xi Jinping made public his goal of flexing Chinese muscle around the world. Beijing and Mugabe had an understanding. He would not criticize Chinese colonialism and exploitation of Africa's resources.
Wow.
They would support him.
Oh my God.
Because Robert Mugabe was a communist. In December 2015, Mugabe gushed about Xi at the China-Africa Summit, calling him a God-sent person. Not really, devil sent. But Tedros' capitalization into the world's worst actors isn't the biggest problem with the WHO as an organization. The WHO slow-walked its coordinated response to the Ebola epidemic in 2015, which killed more than 10,000 people. The whole organization is evidently unfit for the purpose it needs to be abolished. So I wanted to give you that. And then here's this. The WHO and China dereliction of duty. The WHO was founded in 1948 with the lofty goal of ensuring the attainment of the highest possible level of health by all people. In the years since, the organization has been instrumental in controlling or eradicating communicable diseases and investing in healthcare capacity around the globe. However, the WHO is now facing rising international criticism over outsized Chinese influence. They have little actors in everywhere. Hollywood, the WHO, like their tentacles are everywhere. We have to cut off the tentacles of Chinese communism into the entire world. It's absolutely insane. So we know.
Well, and I think that when you hear it, even coming out of the Democrats' mouths, like, do you remember at the debate stage when a lot of them were asked what our biggest threat was? A lot of them did the Russia talking point, but deep down inside, they all knew it was China. Half of them said China because they knew. Everybody knows. Even the bad guys know.
Right.
Now, when we're talking about the WHO here, I remember in the very beginning, like when it first went public, outside of our show, okay, they were sitting down and the WHO was talking about bat soup. And I remember thinking to myself, but lady, it's common knowledge now that it wasn't bat soup. Why are you still peddling that line? And it was in that moment that I didn't trust the WHO. And full transparency here. I was hoping up until that moment that the WHO might be outside of the globalist arm. Like literally just... we are the World Health Organization and we want to help, I wasn't thinking that they were, but I was kind of like hoping. So and now I know that they are completely corrupt.
During the SARS outbreak in 2003, the then WHO director, Dr. Harlem Brundtland, made history by declaring the WHO's first travel advisor in 55 years. And recommended travel against travel to and from the disease epicenter in southern China. He also criticized China for endangering global health by attempting to cover up the outbreak. Okay, so that's true. What has changed in the nearly 2 decades since the SARS epidemic? As always, it's important to follow the money. Since its founding, the WHO has required voluntary budgetary contributions. All right, so now you have countries usually are giving about, countries' assessed contributions have grown by only 3% since 2014. Extra budgetary voluntary contributions have grown 18%. The dependence on voluntary contribution leaves the WHO in the pockets of China because they are giving an extra 52%, so $86 million. It's largely due to China's increase in assessed contributions. Okay, so China was also an important ally. We talked about this of Tedros's.
But is every single scientist and doctor in the WHO corrupt? Like, no, don't you think that within that they would have people that would be like questioning, why are we doing this?
That's a good question. All right, so moving on to more of Europe. And I do, forgive me if I'm kind of like, I'm not segueing very well, but this is a cool video here, in my opinion, of Italians burning the EU flag. And saying we will take care of ourselves.
It went up really fast. It must have been a synthetic flag.
So, yeah, exactly.
So, No Way's Thought says, Michelle, the WHO is the medical branch of the UN, like the CDC is of the USA. Well said.
So, here's my good little news story. We have a 96-year-old Polish lady who is spending her days sewing masks for medical personnel.
Oh, my gosh. She's got a little bun, a little sewing machine.
All right, so let's go to Britain. Okay, British lockdown, 10 days too late, says Italian healthcare advisor. The scientific advisor who called for Italy's lockdown says Britain was 10 days too late in doing the same to have a significant impact on the outbreak. Now, remember, if things continue on the way they are, they're now doing, the UK is doing plasma transfusions.
From patients.
Yeah, they are using the hydrochloroquine. So if the treatments weren't there, okay, and I do think the treatments are there, but... this is what Italians...
Why isn't Italy using the hydrochloroquine?
I don't know.
Whatever, however you say it.
So they're, without all the treatments, Italy's scientific advisor is saying they're at risk of having a higher infection rate. Professor Walter Riccardi, a WHO expert and scientific advisor, so do we trust him? I don't know, but like I said, we don't... It's not everybody in the WHO, because he actually was telling and warning people... told Sky News that the United Kingdom had the advantage of seeing how the deadly pandemic played out in his own home country and should have acted sooner as a result. He gave the example of seeing crowded trains on the London Underground in recent weeks when Italy was already aware of how dangerous that kind of close contact during a pandemic can be. And you're never going to be It's so hard to be futuristic when it doesn't seem like people are getting sick. It doesn't seem like people are dying. You don't see people around you getting sick. Ohio, I believe, was led by God because we don't see these big, huge numbers because our health administrators were looking at Italy, but other people wanted to see it for themselves. They wanted, like doubting Thomases. Let me see the thing in your hand. When asked when Prime Minister Boris Johnson should have locked Britain down, he said at least 10 days ago. Having had the example of Italy, the UK could have adopted the strategy much earlier, remarking that the cases which have been transmitted in the past 10 days would not have been a result of the sooner lockdown. By the way, everybody was pouncing on the Imperial College, who had estimated like 500,000 deaths in the UK. And then he came back and said now he estimated about 20,000 deaths. And everybody said, oh, his numbers were completely off, and how are we supposed to trust them? And the whole world went off this data, and everybody went crazy because of it. And he said, no. If you had left it unmitigated and just let it spread through the population, that's what you would end up with the mitigation and with all the different, steps that you're taking. I think you can get it down to that number. And that's why I believe that thinking people are so panicked about the economy that they can't take a step back to think clearly.
Yeah.
Because even the guy who wrote the Imperial College study said, no, you're not understanding me. You took me as saying I revised my numbers. I revised my numbers based on what you're doing. And people are like, well, wait a minute. We just started the lockdown, and how did those numbers go down so quickly? He goes, because the numbers were based on a continual spread over months and months and months, and a continual exponential growth.
Yeah.
So as soon as you stop the exponential growth, the exponential growth goes down. Like, do you know how to do mathematics?
What happens when they release the lockdown, but prematurely?
Well, and I have a video up where she said this could, your health minister said this could last for 6 months in the UK. And what they're going to do is kind of ease some restrictions and then walk them back. And ease some restrictions and walk them back. Because over the next 6 months. Because you can't just do it all at once. You can't just ease all the...
Why would you walk them back? Ease them and then walk them back.
Well, if the virus goes down, then you ease the restrictions. And then it goes up a little bit. That you have to ease people back into, and if the virus starts to go explode again, then you walk them back.
Right, and that's how you walk it back if it starts to explode. Not that the plan is you're gonna let people out and then bring them back in, and let people out and bring them back in.
The plan is to do that. On purpose.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it absolutely does make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
It does make sense because you've got to get. You can't just and you know what? Steve Bannon's for an all-out lockdown, shut it all down forever, and then just for real quick, shut everything down, just kill it. Or you could go the slow emancipation way.
That's what I'm thinking. All right, so hang on, let me get to one of these comments here that I wanted to read. And Doris Darling says the hydrochloroquine does not work for folks that have sickle cell. Do many Italians have sickle cell? It's a very good question.
Okay, having had the example of Italy, the UK could have adopted a strategy much earlier. When we scientists put the evidence on your table, you should take action. When you take this position later than possible, you pay a price to sick people and death. Certainly, this is something that could have been avoided. The doctor added that the delay in locking down the country had actually resulted in the possibility of the current national quarantine being longer than it otherwise should have been, saying the duration could have at least 1 month, but I guess it could be even longer. Britain is thought to be around 2 weeks behind the curve from Italy, which is the worst hit nation around the world. While the British government's advisors claim that the NHS is within capacity to cope with the worst of the virus thanks to the lockdown and an increase in staff and ICU beds, the country is still vastly short on life-saving equipment, notably ventilators, which industrialists are rushing to produce in the coming weeks. Deaths in Britain continue to climb, with London and Gwent and Wales the worst-hit regions. One hospital specialist said that London clinics are experiencing tsunamis of coronavirus patients, warning that the capital city's hospitals could be overwhelmed in days.
Wow.
So we'll see what's happening there. You have UK fire brigades are drafted in to transport of bodies if coronavirus crisis worsens. So firefighters are fantastic at teamwork, and they're ready. And so having this in Italy and in Spain is getting people the opportunity to be ready, and I think that's fantastic. Now, remember when Sadiq Khan insisted the crowded tube posed no risk back in March? We're
Still
not
in March,
loud,
by the way.
Back in the beginning of March. I'm just not even going to bother playing that. Mayor Sadiq Khan is pleading with people to stay off the London Underground or Tube to keep it safe for key workers. But as recently as March 3rd, he said travel on the subway was safe and presented no risk. Remember, on Good Morning Britain, he was asked by Susanna Reid, can you see a situation in which a sort of metaphorical ring of steel is put around London in order to not spread the virus in the same way we've seen as what happened in Wuhan? Khan insisted he could not foresee such a situation. Bad mayor. You should at least have all things on the table, which has now unfolded in Finland, for example, where Helsinki and the capital region are sealed off from the rest of the country, and claimed that plans were in place the plans that were in place to contain the virus, there were plans, but that wasn't the plan. Reid pressed her point, however, asking him, at what point will you say to people in this containment or even in the next delay stage, look, being in public transport is obviously a risk factor. People are coughing and sneezing on crowded tube carriage. That is going to put you at risk. You know, people might be saying to Khan now, as mayor of the city, should we be getting on these public transportations? Well, it's very important that we don't spread panic or alarm based on misinformation. What we need to do as politicians is rely on our best advice, and he says there is no risk in using the tube or buses or any other form of public transportation or going to a concert. Mr. Mayor, no disrespect, but how on earth can you say that in a city of 12 million people there is no risk? Given that we now know it's here and it's beginning to spread here, and we know that other countries, that the spread has been ferocious. How can you say that there's no risk? Because I rely on the advice I receive from the Public Health of England, the Chief Medical Officer. The advice is you're not going to catch it if you're washing your hands regularly and if you're using public transport. On the tube, on a daily basis, there are 5 million journeys. On our buses, 6 million journeys. Many of the concert venues in London have crowds between 5 and 20,000. Although without explanation why the statistics he provided would suggest anything, but very strong potential for the London transport network to become a critical vector of the virus, despite his claims to the contrary. As recently as March 10th, Mayor Khan was continuing to publish messages on social media claiming there is no specific concerns for using public transport. They have an enhanced cleaning regime and sharing pictures of himself, posting with staff, and everything is fine. And now he's now everything is being shut down, and it's pretty eerie on in
Why does anybody take him seriously though? I mean, after
he's
everything,
the London mayor.
I know, but after everything, he lies about everything. He downplays everything. The knife attacks, the terror attacks. He doesn't, nothing is a risk to him. Literally nothing is a risk to him.
So here is what you're seeing now. London's bustling streets have been left desolate following the UK-wide lockdown announced on Monday. He wasn't even being honest with people. Tourist hotspots such as Trafalgar Square, Leicester Square, and Buckingham Palace are practically empty. I think you're allowed to go outside. Here's people standing way far away from each other.
In line.
And I think you're allowed to go out once a day for exercise. On Monday, the Prime Minister told Britons to only leave the home if shopping for necessities, travel to and from essential work, and to exercise once a day. Sorry, I didn't know it was so loud. All right, so let me put
But I think to make it clear...
She's going to explain to you their 6 months progression.
Ripbot says Michelle Sadiq Khan never uses public transport. He has a chauffeur. I've been on the Central Line at rush hour, and I've had to let 3 trains pass to get a space on the 4th in rush hour in London.
Wow.
Clear to the public, if we are successful, we will have squashed the top of that curve, which is brilliant. But we must not then suddenly revert to our normal way of living. That would be quite dangerous. If we stop then, all of our efforts will be wasted and we could potentially see a second peak. So over time, probably over the next 6 months, we will have a 3-week review. We will see where we're going. We need to keep that lid on, and then gradually we will be able to hopefully adjust some of the social distancing measures and gradually get us all back to normal. So I think 3 weeks for review, 2 or 3 months to see whether we've really squashed it, but about 3 to 6 months ideally, and lots of uncertainty in that. but then to see at which point we can actually get back to normal. And it is plausible that it could go further than that. We just need to wait to see how successful we've been. And of course, the bottom line is, as we always say, keep practicing good social distancing, because we will manage it quicker and better between us.
Wow.
So I just wanted to give you guys that.
Stuart the Brit says it's pronounced Leicester.
Okay.
It's so difficult with those names. Jim West in the UK says a lot of confusion about exercise and if you can travel to do it. Robert Bone says, and this is in the United States, this past week 3 dialysis patients, he's on dialysis, are missing from the clinic. The staff can't tell me anything due to HIPAA law. Nurses are visibly nervous, and I'm staying positive about this. So here's the deal.
Yeah.
We always say use the gospel for protection. Psalm 91, he who dwells in the secret place of the Almighty shall abide in the shadow of his wing.
Amen.
No plague will come near you, the pestilence.
Amen.
If you abide in Christ, in
Amen.
Jesus,
Amen.
in God, if
Amen.
you put your trust and your hope in him, he will protect you.
Amen.
All right, so there is hope in that.
Amen.
Carry on.
Yeah, I don't want to scare you guys, and that's the most important thing, is that knowledge is actually power. And when you know what's happening, then you can, and I will tell you guys this, getting into the power of God, into the presence of God, is going to keep you sane, it's going to keep you healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make predictions, but I do know I can quote you scriptures. If you dwell in his presence, he will keep you under his wing. And so I want you to be dwelling in his presence. I want you to open up his word. I want you to feel his peace, so that worst case scenario, let's say you or a loved one gets it, you can be in that peace, and God can bring the right doctor at the right time and bring healing.
Right.
We showed you the guy who said God. Did we even play it? The guy we didn't play it.
No, because I still have it up from last week. Though.
Okay, we'll play that. God breathed life
Right
into his lungs. Sure.
All right.
So this is a guy, this is actually what's funny about it is that I heard this story last week and I shared it because it was such a miracle. And then one of my good friends from college, she messaged me and she said, Leah, I know this guy. He went to our church.
Right here. Listen to the story, or is there a video here?
I thought there was a video, but I don't know.
I mean, I could just read the article.
What's his name?
Let's see. Clay Bentley. Is that right?
Yeah, let's see if he's doing
It says it was on Fox Nation, maybe? You might not be able to get it if it was on Fox Nation. No, Fox at Night. That's on CNN. Just put Fox. Okay, Clay Bentley, Fox.
Of course, it's not going to come up.
Well, I could just read the article. I mean, it says you can listen to the story. We could just listen to it, Leah.
Go ahead.
Recovered coronavirus patient. God breathed into my lungs and healed me. By Hannah Blow on March 25th, 2020.
No, somebody's just reading it.
Oh, okay. All right. That's just what Breitbart does. All right, let's just read the article. A coronavirus survivor told his story on Monday's Fox at Night, explaining how he was diagnosed with the virus and struggling to breathe as he declined in the hospital and his lungs rapidly filled with fluid. Everything changed, he said, after God came into his room and breathed into his lungs. Clay Bentley, a retired sheriff's deputy from Georgia, shared the story of his miraculous recovery after a bitter battle with the Chinese coronavirus. So he might have made his own video first.
Okay.
That was probably up there on your search. I think I saw it. He believes he contracted the virus after attending a gathering at the church at Liberty Square in Cartersville, Georgia. He rapidly declined, going to urgent care the next day after struggling to breathe. He was ultimately diagnosed with pneumonia and they sent him home. However, he went back to the hospital days after
the coronavirus rises,
his condition worsened, and they eventually confirmed that he contracted the coronavirus. I was in the hospital for about 12 days. I guess it was around the 5th or 6th day. The doctors told me we tried everything, he explained.
Here we go. This will play this.
So hearing inspiring stories from those who have recovered. People we've interviewed describe the debilitating symptoms and how their treatment and support systems help them pull through this. Our lead national correspondent, David Begnaud, he's home too, talked to some of them. He joins us again from his New York City apartment. David, always good to see you. What did you learn from the interviews?
that there's hope happening around the country, Gail, by which people are walking out of a hospital survivors. You know, it's important for us as journalists to not only tell you where the cases are rising, but also where people are surviving. Because folks have said to me, David, I want to know how they were treated and how their recovery is going. So this morning we're going to take you to Puerto Rico and Louisiana, but we're going to start in Georgia.
And look at me, I'm home.
Clay Bentley is sure happy to be home. He is quarantined in his bedroom after spending 12 days in a Georgia hospital. Wow. We followed his fight against coronavirus for more than a week.
I can't even hardly move, and I can't breathe. I can't catch my breath.
There was a point where the doctors told Clay there was really nothing more they could do.
They say, you know, we put these antibiotics through your system. And they said, you in worse shape today than you were when you came in the hospital. It's like 10 times stronger than the flu. When it hits you like a hammer.
Clay says right about when the doctors were going to put him on a ventilator, there were signs of improvement. He says his faith was key to his recovery.
I couldn't breathe at all. And then all of a sudden, I felt the Lord. I mean, His presence was there, and I felt Him blow air in my lungs.
That chest tightness and feeling like you can't get your breath all the way, that's really scary.
Aviva Williamson of Shreveport, Louisiana, was diagnosed 4 days ago. The 36-year-old mother of four says she's still dealing with dizziness and fatigue.
I try to keep a mindset, you know, that I'm just going to get through it and nothing else bad is going to happen.
And then there's the story of Frank Eller, an 87-year-old retired Marine from San Diego who was just released from the hospital. He was in critical condition when he was evacuated from a cruise ship and taken to a hospital in Mayaguez, Puerto Rico 2 weeks ago. He arrived with pneumonia and 5 underlying conditions, severe heart conditions, including a leaky heart valve and even emphysema in one lung. We spoke to him from his hospital bed a week ago.
At what point in the treatment progress did you start to feel relief?
I would say once they got me in this isolation room and started getting the antibiotics in me and the oxygen, almost immediately. Of course, we could not have done it without the hospital's outstanding efforts. And finally, the grace of God.
Amen.
That's why I'm...
All 3 of those people, she had a churchin thing behind her, a picture. All 3 of those people were Christians.
Amen.
All 3 of them, the grace of God, God breathed in my lungs, and the mom was obviously Christian because she, you know, had that church thing in the background. All 3 survivors
that they showcased
were Christians. Now, it doesn't mean that they didn't rely on the hospital.
Yeah.
But they also, God worked through the hospital and medical treatment.
Yeah.
And so I want you guys, if you get sick, you rely on the Holy Spirit.
Well, and here's the thing. Everybody keeps talking about death tolls and death numbers. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't want this thing. Okay? I don't think I will die from it. Like, I don't. I really do not. But I don't want it. Like, I don't want to fight this thing. It sounds awful. It sounds really, really bad. If you get it, bad. Because some people just get it and they have, you know, just mild symptoms.
Right.
Okay? And so, this is to give you hope. If you're like me going, dear God, please don't let me get this thing. But if I do get it, I know that you will see me through.
Yeah.
To a victory and maybe a testimony.
Right. All right. So all over Europe, Le Pen says the EU was the first casualty of the coronavirus. French National Rally leader Marine Le Pen has claimed that the European Union was the first victim of coronavirus, citing a lack of solidarity in combating the outbreak. Ms. Le Pen said that the political bloc even failed when it gave announcements on the virus, a likely reference to statements made by the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, calling for member states' borders to remain open earlier this month. This is extremely serious because the first thing that we do when we are confronted with a human, plant, or animal epidemic is obviously to immediately control the borders to prevent the spread of the epidemic. She went on to add that the EU has said the opposite because it is an ideologue. Free movement is a religion. Even death does not succeed in convincing its leaders that it is obviously necessary for a given period to close the borders to prevent people from regions affected by the virus from coming and spreading it. This is exactly what happened in Europe. Commenting on the aftermath of the outbreak, Le Pen said the EU would learn nothing from it, but the member states themselves will take away the need to know more strategic and not put faith in globalism during the crisis. It is the end of the new world that Emmanuel Macron touted even before he could have started it. The comments come days after Marine Le Pen's niece, former MP Marianne, also criticized the EU, saying China came to the aid of Italy before France, and meanwhile, and we don't really trust China. But anyways, France didn't come. France didn't come and help. The EU didn't come and help. Italy, nobody came to help Italy. Nobody's helping Spain. It is every man for themselves. It is absolutely insane. And here you have Spain. Spain logs 832 fatalities. It's no longer the EU. Spain is on its own. Italy's on its own. France is on it. France stopped trucks trying to get equipment into the UK, commandeering them like some daggum pirates. The IMF confirms world in recession. Europe is reeling from a staggering surge in coronavirus deaths Saturday. Yesterday, still days or weeks from what experts desperately hope is the epidemic's peak. Grim new tolls from Italy and Spain came as the IMF confirmed the world economy has plunged into an historic slump. The U.S. invoked wartime procurement powers. More than 600,000 cases of the new coronavirus have been officially recorded. Spain recorded 832 fatalities in just one day, bringing its toll to 5,690. Second in the world only to Italy. We know that they obviously, those numbers are with China being number one. Elsewhere, Iran announced 139 more deaths. We know that they are not telling the truth about their death toll. They're just dropping like flies in Iran.
Oh, yeah, that's really upsetting.
Right. Let's see. And then we told you about this. Spain's EU certified coronavirus tests from China did not work. And in London, hospitals face tsunami of patients could be overwhelmed in days. The chief executive of a body which represents hospital bosses said that London facilities are facing a continuous tsunami of coronavirus patients and that the city's hospitals could be overwhelmed in days. Chris Hobson, the head of the NHS providers, which speaks for those who run Britain's hospitals, said that even though London hospitals have increased critical care capacity from between 5 and 7-fold in just 2 weeks, they're still struggling. They're struggling with two things. First is the explosion of demand they're seeing in seriously ill patients. They're saying it's the number of patients that are arriving, the speed at which they're arriving, and how ill they are. He continued that while most of them are hanging on, his contacts in London hospitals talk about wave after wave after wave. The word is often used as a continuous tsunami. I think, as one hospital CEO told me yesterday, this is much bigger, much larger numbers with a greater degree of stretch than you could ever possibly have imagined. The second issue is staff sickness, with some facilities seeing 50% of medics struck down by the coronavirus or self-isolating with symptoms. He added that even with thousands more ventilators, he said, coming down the pipeline in the next couple of weeks, the present lack of availability is a real issue in London. On Wednesday, Mr. Hobson tweeted out that the sharp increase in demand for coronavirus treatment in London was already off the scale, saying it's evident that the number of hospitals are on a trajectory where their critical care capacity will become full within a few days. CEOs report that the NHS London regional team is working well and hard and with them to agree to the next steps of what will happen. The government announced earlier this week that the XL Convention Centre would be turned into a 4,000-bed coronavirus field hospital. The NHS Hospital Nightingale, with its first 500 beds expected to be available next week. The United Kingdom is currently 2 or 3 weeks behind Italy, and I just kind of wanted to throw those numbers out there. So what's happening in places that aren't hard hit and other places in Europe? Well, in Finland, sealing off infected Helsinki capital region from the rest of the country. In Denmark.
Copenhagen.
Well, Finland is, and then, but this is from Copenhagen, Denmark. Okay, I don't know why they're writing this from Denmark. Okay, police in southern Finland began Friday to enforce the new regulation aimed at ceasing all unnecessary human traffic to and from Uusimaa, the region that includes the Nordic nation's capital, Helsinki. Police will block access and exit from the region, which has been hit worse in the country. Social Affairs Minister Krista Kuru said earlier this week the decision was taken as a risk of substantial spreading of the infection from this region, the Uusimaa region, to the rest of Finland. Nationwide, Finland has so far confirmed 958 coronavirus cases and 5 deaths. The exceptional move that is set to end April 19th affects the daily lives of 1.7 million people, nearly a third of Finland's population. So that's what's happening there. We go from just a few cases. Remember you just heard about 5 cases, 10 cases, 15 cases, and now you're looking at 1,000 cases, and these numbers are going up exponentially. And that's why, these governments around the world are like, okay, do we want to just boom, 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 let people die and let it go through, or do we want, they're taking a different approach, and history will look back and say, was it important to save these lives or not?
Yeah, well, it's always important to
but is it really? There's lots of people died from N1H1. Lots of people die in car accidents. How much mitigation is too much mitigation? How much mitigation is the right step? And people are just literally, they don't know what to do. And at this point, I really think that the best thing to do is to peace be still. Thank you for the sign. I keep reading it. I see it. And to allow God to lead it. And I was thinking to myself, everybody's watching this Tiger King, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe that's not what God's looking for.
You need to have your focus right now. This is Michelle convicting you right now. If anybody that watches our show is watching that trash.
Well, no, but here's the thing. If the whole world is, do you want God to help stop it or not?
Exactly.
If you're sharing the Tiger King, you're probably not asking God.
If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and seek my face,
instead of watching Gay Tiger Man. All right. So in Sweden, they're allowing a lot of spread of this virus. Their cafes and restaurants are open. The gatherings of 50 are allowed. They have just a minimal. This weird stretching there for Breitbart. Minimal social distancing requirements. Swedish authorities have advised the public to practice social distancing and to work from home if possible. They've urged age 70 to self-isolate. But remember, Sweden, you've got them, on the northern peninsula there. They're not a major source of traffic from all over the world. People do visit Sweden, but it's not, a metropolitan area like, you have in New York or these major cities and London. So they're able to self-isolate in a smaller way.
Well, and like we talked about, and we're going to keep talking about it on our show every week, the fact that if a virus gets in a concentrated area and it starts to really, like in New York, the virus itself builds strength and is a worse virus.
Right.
So if in Sweden they have very, very little cases and it's not spreading, then the virus isn't going to be as strong. So a lot of people could be carriers of it, but it's not building strength.
To say that Sweden isn't doing anything, they are asking people to self-isolate. They're actually kind of where Ohio was at just a couple weeks ago. And standing at bars has been banned. Restaurant customers can be sit and served at tables. High schools and universities are closed, but the preschools and primary schools are running classes. Sweden is an outlier on the European scene, at least. They're saying, the other European nations have taken political, unconsidered actions instead of one dictated by science. It remains unclear how long Sweden's exceptional state will last. Prime Minister Stefan Löfven warning that there are many tough weeks and months ahead. Gatherings would be limited to 50 people instead of 500. The government noted that weddings, funerals, and Easter celebrations would be affected. Still, to reduce the spread of the virus in Germany and the UK, groups larger than 2 are currently prohibited. That's not really a group.
It's not a group. Like, you live with people, so...
Right. Unless they are composed of people you already live with. Officials in Italy and France introduce increasingly restricting limits on public activities, but they're being hit way harder. So for Sweden to say, I can't believe that Italy would be doing that, but you're not being slammed. Your hospitals aren't being overrun. You haven't had, 37 medical people already die. You know what I mean? So the bubbles that they live in is pretty intense. For now, the Swedish government maintains that citizens can be trusted to exercise responsibility for the greater good. They're acting as if the people are the spreaders, and it's like if you mean well, you won't spread it. You know what I mean? If you're just a good person, you won't spread it. Don't worry about it.
Which is so fascinating to me. One of the strongest socialist countries in the world is giving the most liberal freedoms.
Yeah, well, I do think they want it to let it run. Now, Sweden is a nation of 10 million, only 10 million. You know, UK 60, Italy is 60, so way less dense population. Mm-hmm. They can spread out. Yeah, they can really spread out. Okay, yeah. You don't. They are, a lot of them are in the cities, but they can really spread out even within the cities. It's not that you're not going to have, and this is a really good way to explain why it is spread more in densely packed. You know, so they had 3,447 confirmed cases, and they did have 105 deaths. Wow, in Sweden. Mm. That's a lot.
You're saying had like it's over.
Well, no, they have had. Let's say the goal is to slow down the amount of new people getting infected so that the healthcare gets a reasonable chance to take care of them. Let's see, a 60-year-old retired teacher said she trusted the government and also believes Sweden's experience with the virus will not be as dire as Italy's. I'm not worried. I'm not 70 years old yet. We're going to go to a restaurant. So we'll see how Sweden fares, if this will continue to spread or
per your comment earlier, Jeremy said something really great here. God gave us science. Science didn't give us God. God gave us science to help us. We would be fools not to use the science to heal us. I thought that was really well said.
So, like I said, Dyson is producing 15,000 ventilators. Dyson has received an order from the UK government to produce 10,000 ventilators to support the National Health Service. They will donate 5,000 more. The ventilator supports, so that's kind of cool. I just wanted to go over a couple of these stupid things. There are thugs mugging nurses for their IDs to get the free food and drink. Thugs are mugging doctors and nurses. You've got firebombing food delivery vans. They launched missiles at police. 2 supermarket delivery vans were firebombed by a group of youths after Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced that the United Kingdom will go into a 3-week nationwide lockdown. The group of antisocial teenagers, I hate that word, took to the streets of Bristol in apparent defiance of the lockdown, throwing bricks through windows, destroying cars, and setting 2 food delivery vans from the supermarket chain Iceland on fire. The chaos in Bristol began just hours after the Prime Minister denounced it. So, there are some bad people doing some stupid stuff. And then in Australia, you have vigilantes slashing tires of coronavirus refugees pouring into the outback from the cities. Vigilantes in some Australian outback towns have reportedly slashed tires of those fleeing coronavirus hotspots in big cities. And remote areas of the northeastern state of Queensland are being inundated with travellers, mostly retirees, trying to escape the highly infectious disease. As the borders are being shut, we are seeing a surge of grey nomads from the southern states. Unfortunately, this action could turn caravans into cruise ships of the outback if someone is infected and spreads it in small communities. The visitors' vehicles had their tires slashed in some small towns as panicked residents fear their health systems may struggle to cope with the epidemic. So that was kind of crazy. The COVID cases are past the 3,000 mark on Friday. I don't know exactly how many deaths there are in Australia, but they're actually keeping it low there in Australia. And I think that has to do, honestly, with the warmer climate. One last thing, I'm actually kind of, the people stranded on cruise ships, they're like death traps to me, but there are still people around the world trapped on cruise ships, and I felt like that was important enough to share. The coronavirus cruise ship is quarantined here in Western Australia.
From 7 cases to a suspect. The evacuation of 850 passengers on the Artania morphed from a manageable operation to a logistical nightmare.
All we want to avoid is the Sydney Harbour situation, which was a catastrophe.
Passengers are being tested for COVID-19 by WA health officials. After testing is complete, authorities will triage passengers. Those fit to fly will return to Germany on chartered flights over the next 24 to 36 hours. All passengers with COVID-19 will be transferred to 2 private hospitals, paid for by the federal government.
I had a long conversation with the Prime Minister this morning. We both understand it's very complex and very difficult, and we're both very focused on a solution.
Docked next to the Artania is the Vasco da Gama, with 800 Australians on board. 200 are from WA. They'll be transferred to Rottnest Island for 2 weeks quarantine, while the remainder will spend 14 days in isolation, most likely at a Perth hotel, before flying home to their respective states. A number of New Zealanders will be escorted to Perth Airport to catch a flight home this evening, while the state government is in talks with the British High Commission about the 30 UK citizens on the ship. In the interim, those on board are making their own fun.
Swapping passengers on the high seas, while they fret about us on the news, talking up the sun on this luxury cruise.
From several hundred metres away, Taryn Jones took the opportunity to say hi to her parents, who've been on the ship for 3 weeks.
It's as good as could be expected. People are a bit concerned about what's happening. We're kind of trying to social distance.
Yeah. And Western Australia isn't alone in its predicament. Dozens of cruise ships remain in limbo across the globe, including the MS San Dam, off the Panama coast with more than 1,700 on board. The vessel has been turned away from several South American ports. 4 passengers have died of COVID-19 and 53 have reported flu-like symptoms, along with 85 crew. Emily Peace, ABC News.
So that one in the Panama one, 4 people have actually died. It just today, this is from today, stranded cruise passengers transferred to another vessel here in Panama. Passengers showing no signs of virus are transferred off the cruise ship. The Zenem cruise ship has been stuck in the Pacific Ocean since the 14th of March after dozens of the 1,800 of passengers had symptoms, and so they're being ferried off the boat there. Several South American ports refuse to let the Zandam dock, so they're ferrying passengers to another vessel. Holland America said 4 passengers have died and 2 more have tested positive for COVID-19. So these little petri dishes, just terrifying there.
I've never wanted to take a cruise.
And then this Italian cruise ship is over 700 isolated guests near Rome. I don't know how do you feed them?
The government lied.
Well, you just keep running it like you would. They just have to get supplies that keep getting delivered.
No, but what I mean is feed them in a sanitary way.
The workers have put in some great controls at the Port Authority. We have members on the tugs, the lines, the pilot boats, the wharfies who do baggage handling. They've got a number of controls in place, and part of it is making sure that the ship's clear, and if it's not clear, that there's certain notifications given. The Ruby Princess didn't speak to the Port Authority. They spoke to the Department of Health. The Department of Health didn't speak to the Port Authority. The ship was allowed to dock under the cover of darkness, and now there's multiple cases in the community which simply should have been quarantined.
So what they're talking about, this is from the 23rd, the first case where they just were labeled, there were people who had the virus docked, and the ship docked, and they went out into the...
Right, so you're saying what happened when the ship spoke to the Department of Health? They knew there would be people with respiratory illnesses on board this Ruby Princess and didn't declare. And what's your evidence of that?
Well, the evidence comes from the Port Authority, and that'll come out in subsequent deliberations and no doubt parliamentary investigations. But what we understand was that they declared to the Department of Health that 4 passengers had respiratory illness, and the Department of Health advised that there was low risk. What we know now is that that wasn't correct, that there was more cases there, and certainly 48 positive cases of COVID as of yesterday says that there was something wrong. This is a company that had the Grand Princess in California and the Diamond Princess in Japan, where the ships were quarantined. But in New South Wales, it's come on in, there's nothing to see here. Let's do it under the cover of darkness. This ship should have been held outside and should have been proper health and safety protocols put in place by New South Wales Health.
So you're saying the Department of Health heard there were 4 cases of respiratory illness, decided as a result it was low risk. That, of course, turned out to be a lot more cases of people with COVID-19, but that's the assessment they made at the time.
Absolutely, and furthermore didn't disclose that to the Port Authority. So put all the workers, not just the community, but all the workers that attend to cruise ships. But they haven't learnt their lesson, because today at 5 a.m. they were going to bring in the Carnival Spirit, another cruise ship. There's 10 cruise ships that are going to move in and out of Sydney in the next 7 days. The New South Wales Department of Health were going to allow that to happen, as well as the New South Wales government, with no checks in place. The ship that's coming in today has a crew member. Whilst the passengers are off, the crew members are still on board, and there's a crew member again today on board with respiratory illness. But again, bring the ship in 5 a.m. Now, fortunately, because of the union intervening, they haven't brought the vessel in yet, and they're going to do the checks. But the ministers need to come out today, suspend all cruise ship movements until proper protocols are put in place by the department.
So it's just a mess. It's just a mess.
So
Okay.
Barry had wanted me to bring up that video. It may be on YouTube about the big giant, because I can't pull it up on Facebook without pulling up 2 different people sent it to me, without pulling up the chat.
What's it called?
Barry, what is the video called? Like, it's this big hospital that they're building.
Wait, but what's it called?
I don't know. But another thing, I don't know if we covered, and forgive me for not getting this right because I just saw it flash this morning, and then in my chaos I didn't get a chance to delve into it deeper, but one of your top, like, health official doctors or whatever in the UK died of COVID-19.
Oh, really?
Barry, maybe you could help me out in the chat here and give me the better details.
I'm going to play this.
Birmingham NEC.
Okay. I'm going to play this just so you guys can have all information. How effective are wearing masks? I'm not a mask fan, but I want you guys to have all the information available that you can.
지금 이 마스크를 하는 게
How effective is
얼마나
wearing a
효과가
mask in
있나요?
general?
마스크 효과 있죠.
It's definitely effective.
때도 연구를 해보니까
According to research, medical
마스크
professionals
쓰고-
wearing masks
마스크 쓰고
had a
손
significantly
씻지
lower
않은
chance of
의료진이
getting
안
infected
하는
than those who
의료진이
don't.
현저히 낮아요. 소위 서구
In the
사회,
West, like Europe and the
유럽이나
US,
미국
you don't really see
이런
people wearing
데서
masks.
예.
전 그게 좀
I find that quite odd.
그렇게 이제 미국
The U.S.
서른
Surgeon General
제너럴이
said
마스크
people,
필요
they didn't
없다.
want people to wear masks.
WHO에서도
The WHO
마스크를
recommended people not to wear
일반적으로
masks.
그러니까 저는 그게 아니다.
But I'd have to disagree.
제가 가지고 있는 게
I have a KF94 mask.
94거든요. 그러니까 이게 저의
I think it's equivalent to the N95
N95랑
respirator.
비슷하다고
Yes, it's
보는
comparable.
KF94를
Wearing a KF94 mask is almost the same as wearing an N95 one.
의료진한테
So
필요한
Koreans are
그
wearing
쓰는 거예요.
masks meant for
근데 제가
doctors, but
보기에는
these days when I
길거리는
go
다
outside,
대부분 사람들이 요즘은
almost
이렇게
all of them are
잘
wearing
쓰고
these
있거든요.
KF94
어쨌든
respirators.
결론은
So the bottom line
이거를
is wearing a mask
쓰면은
does help.
확실히 보호가 되긴 하는 거네.
그럼요.
Of course it does.
아니 왜 의료진들이
Why else would
병원에서
doctors and hospitals wear
마스크를
masks?
쓰겠어요? 예방이 되니까.
They wear them because they prevent
이미
infection.
사스나
During the SARS and MERS
메르스
outbreak,
때
masks were proven
다
to work.
입증이 됐다고요.
한국에서 사람들이 이렇게 마스크를
Then
많이
can we
쓰고
say that
다니기
because everyone
때문에
in Korea wears a mask, there's less infection in general?
덜하다고 봐도 되는 거예요.
그럼요.
Absolutely.
왜냐면 분명히
Masks have been proven to prevent infection.
지금
Look at China, Hong Kong, Japan, and Korea.
일본이나 한국이나 다 아시아권은 마스크 쓰잖아요.
In Asian countries, people wear masks. In the meantime, if you look at many European countries and the U.S., the virus is spreading rapidly.
환자가 급작스럽게 늘어서 지금 난리잖아요. 한국은
One of the reasons
그나마
Korea has a relatively low
환자가
rate of infection
많지 않은 이유 중에 하나가
is because everyone is wearing a mask and wash their hands regularly. So
I'm down with the washing of the hands. I'm washing my hands all the time and putting on lotion.
We're talking
homemade
about
lotion.
wearing a masks in groups of people,
right?
And dense groups of people,
right? So I'm just not going in dense groups of people.
Right.
Okay, if we go to the grocery store, you stay far apart as best as possible.
And
you
we
know,
use our thieves oil.
And we use thieves oil, which I feel like is
a mask,
a barrier. Okay,
it is. Yeah,
that's
but
my
we don't go out without that barrier.
No, we do not.
We use that thieves oil, like we put a little bit on our nostrils and
I would say this, that if you can abide by wearing one, I just don't like it. If it got bad enough, I would wear one. I just don't like to. If you feel more comfortable wearing a mask, by all means, please do. I believe that they do help. It's impossible for them not to help.
Well, and then also we have some masks because we do a lot of crazy work around here.
Yeah.
And so some people might look at you and say, well, how come you have a mask? Well, I didn't actually go buy one. I just have had one.
Right.
And they're actually showing people how to create an extra layer that you can wash and put over the respirator ones that you get at like Lowe's.
Yeah.
And here's the thing.
Because they each have different levels. Like we get ones at Lowe's that help to keep out dust particles for when you're sanding drywall. Well, that's not going to keep out something as small as a virus.
Exactly. And so it's all, and they've proven that bandanas help, any sort of cotton helps. So with this, Claremont County might have 1 or 2 cases. Last time I checked, there was none in my county. If I was in one of those places in London, in New York,
I would probably be wearing a mask.
I would be wearing a mask and gloves when I went out, and I would take off all my clothes when I came home. I'd put them in the wash machine, or I'd put them in a bag.
Yeah.
And I would. And
do you remember in the very beginning, back in January, we were covering the people in Wuhan and stuff, talking about doing that?
Yeah.
And everybody thought it was crazy, and now it's not so crazy.
Take my thieves oil, and if I leave and come back,
we spray the bottom of our shoes.
I spray my shoes. I leave my shoes outside. Shoes don't come in.
Yeah.
unless they've been sprayed down and disinfected. I try to get Kansas. He can't help it. I don't know why.
Well, he doesn't go places. Like, he's right now.
But he went to
really.
Lowe's.
Yeah,
I don't know if he changed his shoes from there. I'm trying to get him not to wear his shoes in the house, but he just can't do it.
No, we're shoe wearers, and it is a big deal. Around our house, people wear shoes in the house. We're not the kind of people that take their shoes off at the door.
We need to
adapt to that. But the Asian people already do that.
Right. I need to not have shoes indoors if we can help it. And that's.
Well, I just wanted to say, since we're saying we don't wear masks, I don't want you guys to not wear them because Leah and Michelle don't. That's a personal decision. You should, if you can and you got them, wear them.
Right. Exactly.
Go ahead, do it.
Exactly.
Let's see. Granny Shrek says the mask helps the virus from spreading via cough, sneezes, and spittles.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's mostly helpful for somebody who has the virus from not spreading it.
Did you find that Birmingham? Oh, what was it called? I'm sorry, my memory thing is not sticking with me. Birmingham, NEC. N as in Nancy. E-C. Hospital. I'm not seeing any of those be in the video that guy shared. Probably because they don't really want it shared. So I'll just have to tell you guys. I know, Barry, you really wanted us to show it. And it is quite moving when you see him walk into this giant Coliseum type thing. But he talks about 4,000 beds and 2 morgues. And he goes, it didn't really hit me until, there he is right there on The Guardian.
I'm here at Excel at Central London. Just here making the new makeshift hospital. Currently making up cables for it, but I didn't take this virus to be very seriously until, saw this morning. I come in and this is the size of the hall. This is where it's all going. We've got 4,000 beds to go in, 2 morgues. This hall is 1 kilometre long, and there's a hall out on the other side as well. Not sure what's happening there. I just want to keep you all updated, and if you're not taking it seriously like I wasn't, I think we really need to start, because they're preparing for an absolute high death toll here, So there we go. Excel, London.
Now, what he's
saying...
saying...
Welcome to NHS Nightingale.
He says they're preparing for a high death toll. No, they are preparing for a high toll of people with the illness coming into the hospital. Now, everybody that goes into the hospital is going to die.
Right.
And the more measures that they have, like the ventilators and the proper, Leah keeps saying the acronym PPE. It's called person-to-person exposure. It doesn't make sense, but that's referred to all of the gear that they wear to protect themselves from person-to-person exposure. So they refer to all that gear as PPE.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to end with, I think, maybe this is from Spain's hospitals are overrun from Sky News here from yesterday.
In a country in lockdown, the dead are buried without relatives to mourn them. In this cemetery in Barcelona, just a solitary priest is present to pay last respects. A fate awaiting hundreds as the death toll continues to climb across Spain. In the capital of the country, hospitals are reaching full capacity. Here the halls and waiting rooms are packed, standing room only, as they wait for someone to treat them. In another Madrid hospital, patients lie on the floor because there are no beds left. Jose Cabanas, whose mother is still in hospital in Barcelona, says staff there told him the pressure is relentless.
Someone said to me that when they had the terror attacks, it was a moment they had a lot of people arriving at the same time, but that was it. And now it's a constant flow, and they have difficulty managing it.
How did Spain become one of the worst affected countries? This may have played a key role. Thousands of Spanish football fans travelling to Bergamo in Italy for the Atalanta-Valencia game on February the 19th. The city's mayor called the game the bomb that exploded the virus. With cheery music, the Spanish government is releasing footage of field hospitals being built, but also fighting allegations it didn't see this outbreak coming early enough or do enough to stop it.
The
increase in fatalities today is not statistically higher than we've seen 2 days ago, which was showing a more stable tendency which continues despite today's increase.
More and more doctors and nurses are becoming infected. Radiologist Sergio Del Rio is recovering in isolation and says the health system has seen nothing like it.
We're having cases of patients dying in our hands, but in absolute solitude. These patients have to be completely isolated, and they're dying in the hands of the doctors. And us healthcare workers have to go home in fear of transmitting the virus to our families. The situation has got the better of us.
They should give them a
I've never seen
hotel.
so much fear in either the faces of the
Honestly.
patients or the healthcare workers.
And so I show you these because I have so many COVID-19 deniers who will say, well, what about Bangladesh? Or what about where it's not? You know, maybe it's just old people. Maybe it's just people with pre-existing conditions. Well, guess what? These doctors are overwhelmed. This guy was a doctor and he got it. The thing when you're treating a terrorist attack is that the terrorist isn't attacking you.
Mm-hmm.
But with the COVID-19, and even with the flu, pneumonia is not going to get you. So, the flu, right? Somebody gets pneumonia from the flu. That's how people die from the flu, is pneumonia.
Right.
Pneumonia is not contagious. COVID-19 is contagious.
Right.
So the thing of it is, if you could be over the flu and get pneumonia, but if you have the double pneumonia with COVID-19, you still have COVID-19. And I really feel like people are not intelligent sometimes. Like they can't think these things through. Why don't you listen to these doctors in Italy and Spain? Why aren't you listening? They're saying that it was Bergamo that is the hardest hit, right? Country in the world right now almost. And it was that game of everybody together and breathing on each other and going, and it was Spaniards going to Bergamo for the game and bringing it back to Spain.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what we're trying to do is kind of make sure that doesn't happen here. And everybody's like, well, I will only believe it when it does happen. And then you'll look back and say, well, why weren't you ready? Why didn't you prepare?
Mm-hmm.
So
Gino might have corrected me here. He says, I thought it was personal protective equipment. Maybe it is. I do know that PPE also stands for person-to-person exposure.
No, it's personal protective equipment.
Okay, but they keep using the same acronym for
person-to-person exposure too. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
That's a little bit confusing. So now that makes more sense. Thank you for that, Gino. So when you back it out, the thing gets all messed up.
Sorry.
That's all right. I wanted to get to a couple of these comments here before we sign off. As a matter of fact, I had wanted you to sing I Just Want to Go to an Island, but your guitar is upstairs. So we might have to do our song a day separate from this.
Yeah.
We didn't get to do one yesterday. Britt Pazza says, Michelle, the man in the video building the hospital in London, I've just sent it to you in the messenger. No, we just played it, Barry. You must have been looking for it when we played it. I'm sorry, I'll have to rewind it. Now, Tommy Robinson's update with the people that were coughing on the elderly lady, they have been arrested. We'll have to wait and see if they actually get punished. We'll have to see. Let me see. Granny says, if masks at the very least didn't help to stop the spreading of viruses, then hospitals would be closed down by now. Very well said. Oh, and Maya had said, one thing that nobody is talking about is that you should be disinfecting your cell phone several times a day, especially if you take it out while in the store.
Absolutely.
So, yes. And
yes. Like your little card that has to go into the chip machine. Well,
Mm-hmm.
other people's cards go into the chip machine.
Right.
So I always disinfect the card. I've got a little antibacterial stuff in my purse.
Mm-hmm.
Men don't really have that. A purse to carry around all the goods.
Y'all might need a man bag.
Yeah.
Now,
I need to
forward.
Tell that to Kansas. He needs to take his little spray bottle with him and disinfect the stuff in his wallet.
We actually, weeks before this happened, or the lockdowns hit, you bought some hand sanitizers. Mm-hmm. And we don't generally buy hand sanitizer because it's not really good for
bacteria.
You. But you went ahead and bought some, and then for our birthdays, not ours, it wasn't mine, yours and Mom's and Kansas's, you each got these hand sanitizers, and I said, listen, now you may not want to use these, but they could be used on the black market for like currency. Okay, they're little bottles of hand sanitizer. Britbot says, Michelle, tell America to get masks from car paint suppliers. It's the same masks if you can get them. But here's the deal again. The reason why they came out originally in the U.S. and told people that masks don't work
is because
they didn't want people buying them.
Yeah.
So they lied.
Yeah.
They lied to Americans and said they don't work. Because they don't want them to buy them. They do work. That's why they need them. Okay? So if you're going to go get yourself a mask.
America's
if you
not
can get your hands on one.
Redo its, recommendation for the mask until there's enough for everybody to get one.
Bingo. Bingo, bingo, bingo. All right. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
We will try to do our song a day later. I don't know when. It's sunny outside. I don't know. Maybe we should do them while we're still clean. We'll probably go outside and work outside. We love you guys. Remember, God loves you. It's not just a conspiracy theory if it's actually the truth. There's a lot of uncertainties. There's a lot of unknowns. We're trying to put the pieces together using the Holy Spirit as the wild card to make it all make sense.
But I did see somebody say, is this some sort of crunchy mom libertarian utopia where people are having home births and homeschooling?
Oh my gosh. That's the good news. I mean, there is so much good news that is coming out of all of this. And I want to talk about that maybe later when you go to do your song, because I want to talk about us being on our island and stuff, which is why I wanted you to play that song. But thank you guys for being here. Granny Shrek says acapella. I don't have an acapella song that I can think of to sing real quick, so you just have to wait for the song a day. We'll see you guys back here for our song a day throughout the week. And then on Friday for our weekly roundup, we're going to be talking about this a lot because I realized today when we were talking, other news, it's not that we're not covering other news. It's not happening.
We can do a little montage of Creating Me a Clean Heart.
The world has stopped.
Yeah.
And the news isn't happening. So it's not like we're just covering this and leaving other stuff behind. Like they're just, I keep thinking about Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden and nobody's talking about them because there's no news
happening. Accused pedophile Charles Batham arrested in coronavirus chaos in Italy.
That's good.
An accused pedophile from Australia has been arrested amid the coronavirus lockdowns in Italy 9 years after being charged and following an ABC investigation that discovered him living in the seaside resort town. Charles Batham has left the country in 2011 after West Australia police charged him with 31 child sex offences, which he has always denied. An ABC story published in February resulted in a flurry of fresh information and sightings, prompting police to restart their mothballed efforts to find him. Mr. Batham was this month found living in the picturesque town of Carole, northeast in Venice, with Italian police this week arresting the 75-year-old at the request of Australian authorities. In a statement, the Australian Attorney General's Department confirmed the arrest but would not comment on the timeline for Mr. Batham to be extradited. So his alleged victims, who claimed she was molested as a young girl while living in Broome, said she was shocked to hear of the arrest. The police phoned me, and I was really surprised. There's a long way to go, but it's better than the limbo I was living in before. So there's some good news.
So Maya actually answered Patriot Gallery's question to us last night that I didn't have the proper words to explain to her. I said because a virus is a virus, and that's not a very good explanation. So, let's see. She says essential oils are more effective than alcohol because alcohol kills everything, even the good bacteria that helps your body fight germs. And so the essential oils just go after
the bad.
Because she's like, her question was, doesn't alcohol and the essential oils cancel each other out? Alcohol doesn't kill essential oils because essential oils aren't alive.
Right.
Okay, so they're completely separate.
Yeah.
There. So Leah wants to sing "Create in Me a Clean Heart."
And then we'll go into that word. It's just kind of a little round there. Not round. Create in me a clean heart, oh God, and renew a right spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart, oh God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from thy presence, O
and take not thy Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of thy salvation, and renew a right spirit within me. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto thy path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. I will not forget.
You're leading, I'm following.
You too. Your love for me, and yet my heart forever is wandering. Jesus, be my guide and hold me to your side, and I will love you to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. You're the light unto my path.
That's it. That's it right there. That's all you need to stay safe in the midst of all this chaos and to stay sane as well. We love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all of our moderators, everyone that is, here religiously when you get no notification and you come anyway because we're going to be here around 1:30, 1:45. We love you guys. We'll see you back on Friday for our weekly roundup.
And throughout the week and later for our song.
Yep. God bless, guys.
I was cold.